is the best football program. Notre Dame is a pretty doggone good second choice. And you've got a Golden Domer in Judge Amy Coney Barrett, and she's under relentless attack. First, what do you know of the judge? Second, what do you think of the attacks?
First, I've gotten to know the judge and her family fairly well over the course of her previous nomination and then bipartisan confirmation to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. We know by now, if you've been paying attention, that she is a legal scholar, one who pointedly follows the Constitution, is not known for legislating from the bench, as they say. So she is an originalist and a textualist in the Scalia mold. In fact, she clerked for Judge Scalia after she graduated from law school, and later became a professor of law at Notre Dame Law School, a favorite of her students because of not just her scholarship, but her relatability, her ability to communicate challenging ideas oftentimes to those who sometimes weren't receptive to them. She took that skill set with her onto the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, was able to persuade others of the merits of the constitutionalist position. And I think that she is Scalia plus. She'll have the ability to take that method of interpretation with her onto SCOTUS, but also to persuade colleagues of the propriety of many of her decisions, which is precisely what you would want from a judge. So I just think a lot of her, I've gotten to know her, as I said, personally. And look, this is a sacrifice for a mother of seven. Kids who are still at home, still at school age, and I just commend her and her family for going through this wrenching process. In terms of the attacks on her, completely unfair. I mean, most of them seem to be leveled at her faith, quite candidly, at her belief in religious freedom, and more personally, at her own exercise of religious freedom through a prayer group. There are thousands, tens of thousands of Hoosiers around the state of Indiana who on a daily, weekly basis gather together in such groups, and they socialize, they dialogue about some of the issues that are most fundamental to their own spiritual lives, and this should not be the subject of really any in-depth conversation. It certainly will not weigh upon her opinions, and it violates our restrictions against religious tests for high office in this country.
Senator, I hope you will circulate to your colleagues an article by Archbishop Jeff Pugh, the Philadelphia Emeritus Archbishop, who wrote it in First Things yesterday on anti-Catholic bigotry and its long, sordid history in the United States. And they should be aware, your colleagues should be aware of how repulsive it is to see anti-Catholic bigotry. The headline in the AP this morning, Barrett tied to faith group ex-members say subjugates women. This is maybe, along with Bill Maher's, she's an effing nut, the low point, and we're only 3 days in.
Well, it should be the low point, but I predict it will not be the low point. I certainly hope I'm wrong for Amy's sake, for the country's sake, for the institution of the United States Senate's sake. It's important that we maintain those norms and we ask questions that are actually related to the qualifications of a given nominee, and then cast votes accordingly. But they're going to try and trash her, to put it in modern and pedestrian parlance. They're going to try and trash her for her faith. If not for her faith, then they're going to try and create some seeds of doubt in the minds of the American people about her intentions, about cases that aren't even before her and have never been before her, related to health care and all manner of other issues. So,
Senator, I have a prediction for you. Write this down. Because I've been a member of the law school faculty for 25 years. She serves as chair of the appointments committee. She probably has to vote as well on appointments and tenure. You're going to find someone who says she wasn't or he wasn't hired because of her, or that she or he wasn't promoted because of her and claim discrimination. That's going to be the torpedo. Let me ask you, though, to explain what your colleague, Senator Harris, said yesterday. Yeah. Senator Harris, at a campaign appearance, said this.
We will not let the infection that President Trump has injected into the presidency and into Congress, that has paralyzed our politics and pitted Americans against each other, spread to the United States Supreme Court.
What does that mean, Senator Young?
We will not allow someone who doesn't share our evolving understanding, progressive interpretation of the Constitution to get on the court. I don't know how she's going to block it, but essentially she doesn't want there to be two different camps and respectful dialogue about the meaning of our most foundational texts. Instead, she wants a judge on the Supreme Court of the United States that, like a politician, like a President Trump or those who run for the United States Senate or the U.S. House, she wants someone who shares her and the far left's radical convictions about the direction this country should go. So that's what it means. She wants a politician on the court. She doesn't want a judge.
Well, infection is one of those terms which just to me signals an over-the-top attack on an individual relating them to a disease. I just find it to be dehumanizing.
Well, we have, of course, heard that term before. I think back to some really dark decades of the 20th century. We heard that in the context of the Holocaust. We heard that in the context of Jews. So anyone who takes history and religious liberty seriously ought to be concerned about the use of such
the improvident
terms.
use of that term. Let me play for you Kamala Harris with Lawrence O'Donnell last night. This is kind of funny, actually. Let's play the second Lawrence O'Donnell, Kamala Harris clip.
If Judge Barrett is confirmed and the Democrats have control of the Senate next year and the White House and the House of Representatives, should the Supreme Court be expanded?
I think that, first of all, Joe's been very clear that he is going to pay attention to the fact, and I'm with him on this 1,000%, pay attention to the fact that right now, Lawrence, people are voting.
So no answer there.
Goodness. So if I might respond just briefly.
Please.
So, Q, I am leading, as you'll recall, the Republican Senatorial Committee. My colleagues elected me to be in charge of the reelection effort for these U.S. senators so that Republicans might keep control of the U.S. Senate and maintain a firewall against some of these far-left excesses we're hearing from Kamala and from so many others. And this Supreme Court vacancy will be a net positive in the Republican-leaning states that we're competing in and where we must win in order to keep control of the U.S. Senate. This puts the Democrats, from that quote we see, in a very difficult spot. Now they're being asked questions that they never wanted to be asked, and they can't answer. So, for example, what sort of judges would Joe Biden nominate, and what sort of judges might a Democrat running in these battleground states support? Also, what she was asked, will they support a packing of the Supreme Court, which, of course, FDR tried some generations ago, an addition of justices to the court. This is not mainstream stuff, Hugh.
No, it's
and,
weird,
and the
and
American
Gary
people
Peters
don't like it.
Yeah, Gary Peters dodged it as well. Last question, Senator. You're an accomplished guy. You're Naval Academy. You are law school at Indiana. You're an MBA from Chicago, which means you actually did law and economics, which means you know stuff. Nevertheless, I think you would agree with me when 40 Supreme Courts clerks get together, and one of them says, Amy Coney Barrett is a generational talent. She was the smartest of the 40 Supreme Court clerks that year. What's that tell you about her?
That tells you that she has done what we should all aspire to do. She has earned the respect of people she would respect. She has earned the respect of those who are closest to her, closest to her legal work, have gotten to know her personally, and so that is something we should give great weight and credibility to. So I take that as a reference list as she applies for this job. And as someone who has gotten to know her less well than some of these former clerks, but nonetheless has interacted with her on multiple occasions, I couldn't think more highly of a person by reputation and through my personal interaction. So, with all that said, I'll be doing my job, asking the same probing questions that we ought to be asking, but I have high confidence that we're going to be moving forward without delay on this nomination, as we should, and that Amy Coney Barrett will be the next Associate Justice in the Supreme Court of the United States.
Quick question, Senator. Will we get this done before the election?
It's a family conversation that's ongoing. I think there's high probability we will, Hugh.
I'm glad because I think we get wiped out. I think your job becomes impossible as NRC chairman if we don't. Thank